All right, it is, I believe it's 7:03. I have a hard time seeing the screen in here. So it's the annual reorganization meeting for the White River Unified District Board. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:03. Adjustments to the agenda. The only adjustment I had is under board reorg. I failed to put, we do need to appoint a member to the RTCC board because we send students to the Randolph Technical Center. So we do need to appoint someone there. So I'd suggest that we probably do that, right after 3.11. So that will become 3.12 and then the numbers will move down. Is there any objection to that? Nope. Any other adjustments? Hearing none, I'm going to hand this over really soon. The first order of business is to elect a chairperson to the board. Do I have any nominations for chair?
I'll nominate Nancy Bugler.
Nancy has been nominated. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any other nominations? Hearing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of Nancy Pageway for chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nancy, it's all yours. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for your vote of confidence. It's a mighty responsibility to try to fill Andrew's shoes, that's for sure. So our first order of business with me as chair is to elect a vice chairperson. Are there any nominations?
Is it okay to ask if anyone's willing to do the job before we nominate? Is anyone willing to do the job before I nominate someone?
What is the requirement to do the job?
You would be in charge of the board meeting if I were absent. That's basically...
I'll do it. I will nominate myself, if that's okay.
You can, Robert's Rules, small boards, you can.
Okay. Are there any other, is there a second? Do we need a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Jamie Daniels being the vice chairperson, say aye.
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 Thank you, Jamie. I'll try not to be absent.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is to elect a clerk. Do we have any nominations for the clerk? I believe, Julie, you've been the clerk?
I have. I've done a so-so job. I'm happy to do it again if people felt like I did a good enough job with it.
Does anybody else have a nomination for that?
You care to be the clerk?
No, that's good.
I'll nominate Julie.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say, are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye for Julie.
Aye.
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 Congratulations, Julie.
Why, thank you.
Next on the agenda is to appoint 3 members to the WRVSU full board. For those of you that are new, this meets once a month also. It's the week after our meeting usually. It's on the Tuesday afterwards, and it usually meets at 6 o'clock at night. And it's pretty interesting because there are board members from all of the other towns in the district, which there's a lot of towns in our district that I didn't even realize that until I started going to those meetings. So, is there anybody that...
I'd like to propose a motion to combine 3.4 and 3.5 by making the chair, vice chair, and clerk the 3 members, and to appoint the remaining 3 members as alternates. Does that work?
I was going to say for Julie, I bet it...
Tuesdays
hard.
don't work well.
And
To add a
it's kind of
second
early.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Getting there at 6 o'clock.
Well, with the alternates, you could just get one of us to
Okay.
Well, I'd rather
actually...
do another one instead of the full board. I'm happy to do like policy, because I can do the 5 to 6, but I can't do, it's the time of the Tuesday isn't great.
Where does the
So-
full board normally meet?
At the superintendent's
Superintendent
office.
office.
By Waterman?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's always
I
a
can-
virtual option too, but
Okay, I should be able to accommodate it if you'd like to maybe have a
Okay.
primary, I should be able to.
Okay, so it would be,
Chair, vice chair,
and, okay,
yep.
sounds good to me. And,
And then I guess I'd like to put forth a motion that the remaining board members be appointed as the alternate.
right, seeing as we have to have 6 people, yeah, okay, great.
Got it?
Although Peggy just arrived. Peggy, would you like to be one of the primary reps to the district board?
I'm fine, wherever people want me, whatever you want me to do.
Peggy has done a nice job of being an alternate.
Okay, yeah, it's
When
true.
we-
Every time
when
I've
we've been
asked.
short. And Peggy, I gotta say, I give you credit. You jump right in, like, without missing a beat. So.
Yeah, no, that works for me. Okay, recording secretary. Who has been doing that?
It's Ben Parker, I believe, for your board.
And it
correct?
just changed to.
And then Misha, has Misha
Yes.
started doing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anybody know if that's something
Remember
that's...
Misha's name. Well, a board member can do it, by the way. We don't have to have an outside board member do it. Trying to just get.
But it means taking minutes at the same time that you're trying to participate in discussions, and
Right.
that gets a little wonky.
Looking for a last name.
Yes.
I think
that's-
it's Spittle. Does that
You're
sound right?
absolutely right, it is.
Okay.
Yep, Misha Spittle. Pierce, she's an employee at over in Rochester Stockbridge in tech and special ed para. So she's been taking on some minutes for us because Parker was all of a sudden doing it for a lot of different boards. And like we needed to
Okay.
not do so many. So if you guys are good with Misha, I think Misha's
Yeah.
willing to do it.
Okay, great. And who would like to be signing payroll now that Rodney's no longer on the board? Would you like to just take it over, Ed?
I mean, sure. I don't know what to do, but I'm pretty sure someone will tell me. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's that complicated, so.
Unless there's somebody else that likes to sign paychecks?
No. No money, no.
Okay, those in favor of, I guess for appointment, we don't need to.
Unless it's being
Controversial, yeah. Okay, so Ed will do that. I don't mind being the alternate.
There you go.
I mean, chances are Ed's going to do it. If Ed's been the alternate for 2 years and has never had to do it, I'm kind of assuming.
Kind of safe.
The alternate would probably never, so it looks good to volunteer for something. Here's a tough one, negotiation. Ed has been the person on the negotiating committee?
Yeah, and I don't know what the right answer is there. We're in the middle of negotiations.
Yeah, so I would just suggest we may be in the final third of the road just on this current bout. And so the board may want to consider, just because the negotiation team's been working on this now since, fall, I would suggest that it would be important for us to keep the team in place if we could.
And I don't think
with
we have-
Ed, but then we do have a negotiation next year though with support staff. So if there was interest, Ed could,
You decided not to go to college after all? Oh, right. Okay. Time to go. Get over here.
Mike, Ed could finish this round, and then if someone was interested, they could pick up next fall.
I know Jamie had said she was interested.
It's something I have many years of experience doing on both sides of the table, actually. And 2 things, I would be happy to pick it up next year.
Sure.
I would also be happy, if it's amenable to you, to sit in and learn how you're doing it as you go, unless you think that's not a good idea.
I don't think
No, I
that there's
think the
anything
board would be fine
against
with that.
another, yeah.
I mean, when I first learned to do this, I sat in with a more experienced negotiator for a year almost and learned how to do it.
If you've got any experience, you're probably overqualified, because it's not overly formal. We go by
Yeah.
rules, but it's not, it is, I wouldn't call it casual, but, friendly-ish.
We try to do collaborative.
Yeah,
No,
it's very collaborative and, you know, it's not very antagonistic.
No, and
Yeah.
I mean, when I first met with Jamie, I looked at the contracts and they look very standard and pretty good, actually.
Right.
Let me say so.
No, I'll finish, I mean, I think I have to finish this negotiation because that's the right thing. But
Yeah.
then I don't mind you, that would probably be mean November, December, you're gonna be on a support staff. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And if you would prefer I not sit in on the tail end of
Time
this one,
flies.
that's
Well,
fine.
that doesn't even bother me. I just don't, the only reason I looked at Jamie is because I don't know about the appropriateness
Yeah,
of
okay.
introducing new people at this point.
I can check with that,
Yeah,
the
and
chair
if
and the
not,
vice
that's
chair,
fine.
because it is an SUY committee, but
Sure.
my sense is they're gonna be okay, but I'll just check.
If they're not, I'm cool.
Okay, appoint one member to the policy committee. And
I
Julie,
would
did you
do,
say
I'm
that?
pretty open, I could either do that, I could do the evaluation committee, I could do RTCC, depending on what other people's interest is.
So
But
I'm very
happy to do
interested in policy, but I'm curious about the schedule.
So the policy committee meets typically either an hour or a half hour prior to the full board meeting, just
Okay.
based on our.
So typically
work.
align it with the regular schedule.
We align it right with the full board meeting.
And for clarity for everybody, the reason I'm interested is that's sort of where my professional experience lies, so. That's essentially what I do most of my day is evaluate policy, and that sort of work, so.
I'm okay with it. Everyone else?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that sounds
We
good.
welcome you to the
Thank you.
team. It's actually a pretty strong committee. Like, a lot of boards don't necessarily get into policy, but I guess we have members from each board that seem very interested. So I look
Great.
forward to having you join that group.
Great. Next up, member of the superintendent evaluation committee.
happy to do that, unless someone else,
Okay, Julie?
Whatever.
yeah, okay. And that doesn't meet during the day, does it? Because that's one committee that I can't.
It's in the evenings.
Okay,
Yeah, and just so you know, Julie, the timeline tends to be mid-fall until like January typically. It's like 5-6 meetings most.
no problem.
Okay, appoint a member to the RTCC board. How often does that one meet?
That meets quarterly,
Oh,
so it's like 4 times a year.
unless there's somebody that really wants to do it, I don't mind doing that one.
Great, I'll let them know, Nancy. I
Okay,
think they have a meeting coming up
okay.
fairly soon.
And appoint a truant officer.
We were doing what, principals, Royalton Police, and did we have the
In Windsor
sheriff?
County, yep.
Windsor County Sheriff, Royalton Police, and the principals of White River Valley High School, White River Valley Middle School, White Valley Elementary, and Bethel Elementary.
Yep.
Is somebody else taking minutes on this? It just occurred to me.
Yes. And the
it's
audio
video.
will be recorded.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
I have it
I didn't write down all of
Yep.
that just now. Designate newspaper and radio station for official notices. So the Herald,
The Herald. Did we designate the front porch forum?
We did Valley News,
Valley News, the Herald,
and then Great Eastern Radio, just because it covers a bunch of different radio
Great
stations.
Eastern Radio.
okay. Set date, time, and location of regular school board meetings. Does anybody object to sticking with Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock on the third Tuesday of the month?
Works for me.
And alternating between the two locations?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And designate posting places. I have no idea where.
Town clerk's office, the,
Outside the offices at the schools. It's never-
Town clerks,
yeah,
schools. and I'm assuming the post offices.
That
Who's in
was-
charge of making sure those things are posted?
Well, Carmen just raised her hand, so I'm curious to what Carmen
Yeah.
had to say, actually, as the town clerk. Are you okay with her?
Yes.
speaking right now?
Absolutely.
Carmen, did you have something about the posting locations? We were just curious. Maybe not. So Christy does handle that for me,
Okay,
and I'm not hearing that there's been an issue, but it's a good time on reorg for me to just check and make certain, because
Yeah.
often we'll use our admin assistants in the buildings to help with those, like
Yeah.
the post office, right?
Yeah.
So it is a good time for me to just check in with Christy and make certain it's
Yeah.
been a well-oiled machine.
okay,
So I'll note that to do that.
okay. I think that takes care of reorganization. And now we're at public comment. Any public comment from those of you on Zoom?
Ian just
Ian
raised his hand.
Ian? Hi.
Hey guys. Yeah, I don't know if this is exactly, where you want to in public comment, but, or, if you would take public comment in the discussion later on from the agenda. But, on the school bond, the PAC expansion, I would like to, obviously I haven't been coming to these meetings to hear what you guys have been discussing and now with a new board, but just as, someone that's, kind of been watching this, and also one of the things I commented before, I'd really like to see is the project split up a little bit where, understanding the stormwater, the library HVAC, and the Bethel security projects, I just would like to see some more reasoning on why those couldn't be, pushed forward with whatever we have for capital money now. And then, personally myself, like I'm not in favor of the workshop expansion. I know there's a lot of other folks that aren't in favor of that. And then it muddies the efforts that a lot of folks, think of the, this bond vote as being the PAC. And then like whether certain people are in favor of different parts. And if the PAC is to happen, I would just like to see it be, not a reduced thing that has all the parts and pieces that, we see as needed, and see if it could, be supported on its own. So that's just my comment.
Thank you. Carmen, did you have a comment also?
Hi, yes, I do, and I apologize. I wasn't able to quite jump in on time for the posting. Just some information. We might need to change up the post office as our posting spot. I spoke with the new postmaster just this evening before they closed, and they had taken down the school notices, and I'd asked about it, and she believes that we're not supposed to post in that building. And I just asked her if she could give us a day or two to double check with that. So if you could give her a day or two to find out about that information, we may need, or you may need to choose a different posting spot. She'll have more information in the next 48 hours.
Okay, thank you.
So we can keep it for now, and then if she lets us know that we need to amend that, we can just do that next month, because we still have 2 public in each town.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The board following that, like we have the town clerk and the school,
Yeah.
we keep it, and then if they say no, then we can think about where we want a third to be, but we need 2.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Is that, excuse me, is that both town clerks and both schools?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ian, did you have another comment?
Yeah, sorry, separate from Ian, Danae McKenzie. So I do kind of want to address something that's come up recently in discussions with different booster meetings and with students. So there's a couple concerns around the 7-period schedule that was presented to students last Friday. In previous years, a 7-period model has been discussed, but always presented the issue of students having to choose between band or chorus. They could never take both with the 7-period schedule. And we have a number of students that are enrolled in both. There is also speculation that this 7-period schedule includes a mandatory study hall. And if this is the case, then it does not align with what WRVSU has instilled in all of their teachers and preached to all of their teachers, which is that we need to be meeting every student where they're at. So really my question for the board, I have 3, is what issues are we trying to resolve by moving to this 7-period schedule? How does the new model support students that want to be enrolled in both band and chorus? And if the study hall is a requirement, then how does this align with meeting every student with where they're at?
Thank you.
And I'm happy to just give the board an update of where I think we're at with the scheduling process under my report. And for the public
I
too.
think we really need you to stay because.
Yeah, I'll do my best and then we'll go from there. Yeah. It's my time? No, not yet.
Oh,
Or do you want me to do it right now? Or under my report? I'm happy to speak to it right now if the board wants. Yeah.
Yeah, let's speak to it now while it's fresh.
So, just so folks know, like, I haven't seen any finalized, like, proposed schedule to me yet that I know that's definitely final. I've heard concerns about a 7-period schedule. It's been explained to me a little bit opposite of what I just heard here, is that in the past we had a mandatory callback, but that mandatory callback was no longer going to be in place in a schedule. So there's been times we've had 8 periods and everyone had like a WIT band, like whatever it takes, like with callbacks. And then one year we had one of the blocks was called Pathways and everyone had to do it within the 8-period schedule. And what we were finding was that engagement was not that high during those. This everyone has to take a study hall is brand new information and we have not heard that. I will say that I think one of the things that, and where it may be getting confused, is that right now we have some student taking multiple study halls and not necessarily being productive. And I believe there's an attempt by your building-based leadership team, meaning teachers and administration, to have it be that students were really taking one study hall. Not that everyone had to take a study hall, but that we were working hard to build schedules that didn't have more than one study hall. Because students were not being productive in multiple study halls. And I would say, based on being in your hallways today covering for the principals, I would find that to be accurate, that we have some students not enrolled in enough classes or pathways or work-based learning, like just too much time on their hands. So that's my understanding, not that everyone had to take a study hall. It was that students would not have more than one study hall. There are some things happening with freshmen next year in semester 1 that they are doing an onboarding class for your freshmen that I know Mr. Oakes would be excited to talk to you about. That is going to be like a freshman overall, like get up to speed to high school course. And that is being a requirement for freshmen in semester 1 that they're calling Freshman Academy. That's not a study hall, but I could see where that might get confused that everyone had to take. So I'm going to ask these questions and follow up with the principals and the high school leadership team, because everyone having to take a study hall is brand new information to me, and I would have a concern with that. Just based on, I don't think everyone necessarily needs a study hall. I've also been promised that any schedule that was presented, that it would not pin AP courses, tech courses, up against students so that they're having to choose one of those over a band or a chorus, or pin band or chorus up against each other. I was also told that the schedule for next year was going to allow for students to be able to take jazz band during the day on top of band and chorus, is what I've been promised. So that's the information I have that I've been working off of, but I definitely think it should. I will follow up. I will report out to the board. I will ask the administration to get a letter out to parents like soon, if this is what's out there. And then I think we should have it as a board discussion to close this loop next month.
Thanks, Jamie. I really appreciate that information. Like I said, I think that, when I presented my comment, it was that the study hall piece that it was speculation. So it's hard to know.
I'm glad to hear that, because that's like so opposite of what I've been trying.
Okay, that's good. But yeah, I think that it would go a long way. I think it would go a long way just trying to having that letter out so that parents and students were on the same page, because, you know, when things are being presented to students, we're getting it secondhand. And then also, you know, we're hearing from, you know, being part of the performing arts boosters, I'm hearing from the music directors that, you know, we're back at that clash of, you know, if you want band and chorus, then if you're taking the two, then you can't be in an AP course, or you have to choose band or chorus. And so that's really the thing that we've been trying to prevent for the last few years. So it would be great to have that. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll make certain a letter gets out by the first of next week. I'll ask those questions specific. I'll report back to the board what I find, and then I think we should have it under discussion.
Yeah. Thank you very much for bringing that to us. Okay, I guess that's the end of public comment. The consent agenda, we have to approve the minutes of February 18th, the regular meeting.
I'm happy to put forth a motion to approve all of them unless someone has discussion or comment. Approve.
Okay. Do we have a second, Peggy?
Sure.
Okay. Any comment? Any problems with the minutes? No? All those in favor of accepting all three of these, say aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed? Okay. We still have more public comment time here and correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? Having seen none? Okay, moving right along. Board comment. Anybody from the board have a comment to make?
Can this be general, just anything goes comment?
Yeah.
Okay, I've never commented during board comment, I think, before. So I saw a sign on the bathroom door that said, bathroom closed to racist graffiti, I think is what it says.
Yes.
And I want to thank maintenance for putting that up, because I think kids should know why bathroom is closed. But I have some concerns, because I know that Dana has been working really hard in this school and has made like huge progress, and it felt like a step backwards. And I'm just curious what has happened with that. So now this bathroom is closed. Have kids talked about it? Has anyone addressed it with the kids? What's happening with something? I don't know if that's new or not. That wasn't an issue we've discussed in our anti-racism task force before. But anyway, just is concerning. So.
Was this the middle school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's right down the hall. It's still on the door when I came in. I was in this weekend for a class for Beth University and saw it, and it's bathroom down there.
And do we have anybody being held accountable?
Right.
I'm interested.
I can share that with Pierre and ask that he report out to the board
Thank you.
since he's not here.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed it too when I was here this weekend, and yeah, it is troubling.
Yeah.
Any other board comment? Okay, seeing none. So, do we have a celebration of learning?
We do.
All right.
I'm going to fill in the best I can, but there's a little video.
Okay. That's always fun.
Do you have it? Perfect. And before we kick it off, this is a celebration of the winter activities that occur at the White River Valley Elementary Schools on both campuses. The program provides students with the opportunity to participate in various off-campus activities, which took place on Thursday starting in January. And their options off campus were the ski and ride program at Saskadena 6, skating at the Woodstock Union Arena, and new this year, which I was actually really excited about them like taking this responsible risk, is that kindergarten did swimming at the Upper Valley Aquatic Center. And a lot of times you would think like kindergartners, but I just think it's an awesome opportunity to get our kids there at the pool.
Cute.
So that was great. And they also have students that prefer to be on campus can stay on campus. That's a choice too. And sledding, snowshoeing occurs, cross-country skiing, farm to school baking and cooking. They did beet brownies, carrot muffins, and dip. There was some crafting as well. And they're excited to continue providing these enriching experiences to their students for years to come. There's a lot of parent volunteers, and the PTO is very involved in this in regards to caregivers and guardians supporting this work, and staff that come together to make this happen. So Andrew just really wanted to put that shout out. Like, in general, this is a real community effort where, you know, partners in the community partners help support the school staff to make this happen. So there's a little video to capture some of it.
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, anything from either of the other principals?
Nope. Next month, you're going to get a presentation from the high school on their capstone work.
Oh, okay.
So kind of highlight the work that happened with your seniors and talk about what tweaks we might be looking to make for next year and how they're gearing up for the current juniors.
Nice.
Both of those advisors will be joining us next month.
Great. Reports to the board, you're up.
So you have my superintendent report in hand. One of the things I wanted to mention, and I sent this out in an email to everyone, is that we have 2 local teachers who have organized a community conversation and have invited all the SU board members. On Tuesday evening, our elected reps and senators are going to be joining us here on the Bethel block.
Arnold Block, Blossom Block.
Blossom
Block, thank you. Blossom Block. And Jamie, thanks for putting out that information added, so all the board members would receive that. And so we're doing that from 5 to 7. And then the plan is to have the full board meeting here, because we're hoping that we get more people in person for that SU meeting that we actually wouldn't be able to fit in the SU office. So the SU meeting next week will be here in Bethel, be a hybrid option as well, at 7:15 to start. So I just wanted to add that. And just so board members know, if you're an alternate, like all board members are always invited to the SU board meetings, not just voting members. We welcome everyone. And you can engage in discussion and everything. It just, when we go to a vote, then it would be the 3 voting members or the 2 and 1 of the alternates. But no, everyone's always invited. And so I just wanted to mention that. The other thing I didn't put in my written report, but that I want to mention to you as a board as well, is that we do have a member district in the supervisory union that would be interested in coming to your April meeting to discuss whether or not you had any desire to consider a district within the SU designating you as their secondary school. So the First Branch Unified District is interested in sending their chair and vice chair to come join you in April to discuss whether or not that would be something that you would be interested in. And so I wanted to relay that message, and we, under future agenda items later tonight, we can talk about whether or not that's something that you'd want to entertain. Certainly, I think that's very exciting to have another member SU district showing an interest in possible designation. So I just wanted to mention that too. Otherwise, I'll entertain any questions folks may have in regards to my report. Oh, I got to highlight, I blew this at Sharon. Art and Soul is next week too.
Yes.
Yeah.
The 27th?
Yes, on Thursday evening, starting at 5:30. We will have overflow parking occurring in the law school again, and we've got a shuttle bus all set up for that. We'll have signs out again about that. And we have, you have a lot of performers across, your 2 campuses, but we will have participation across every school in the SU, which is great because I think it's always nice to have them come together. It's just another opportunity again to really celebrate the arts. So that will be happening next Thursday.
And last year, it was absolutely phenomenal.
It was really well done. Yeah. I've been seeing some students rehearse, in the last week or so, and
Yeah.
it seems like it's going to be really good again.
Thank you, Jamie. Do we have reports from the principals?
There's a
Yeah.
written report. If you had additional questions outside of what has already come up, I'm happy to try to take a swing at it. Otherwise, like I said, I'm always more than happy to get back to the board once I have the answer.
Looks like the play is coming up, parent-teacher conferences are coming up, report cards are going home, the dental band's coming.
Lots of things happening in your schools, yeah. And the play is this coming weekend.
Yes.
So, and we got dress
Friday.
rehearsals starting on Thursday.
Yeah, so Friday night, and then 2 shows on Saturday,
Correct.
nothing on Sunday.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
I have a question about the schedule. So is it new, the half-day is new? Is this a new proposed schedule for a half-day Friday, or is this,
Which page are
The-
you on?
it seemed like it was highlighted that there was a change. Is there a change in the schedule? A big change in the schedule, or is it just,
Where are you seeing that?
under high school, page 2? A new weekly schedule. I wasn't sure what was new about the weekly schedule.
Oh, the hyperlink
Oh, right there, yeah.
on page, you're on 4, Jamie, sorry,
Right.
2. It's on a
And I-
hyperlink.
Looked at it, I don't think there's a paper copy of it here, but I'm not familiar with the high school schedule, so I wasn't sure what was new. And I think that's what you were talking about during the public.
It
comment,
is.
But I wasn't sure what was, like, the past one versus what they're proposing.
It's 8 to 7.
Okay,
Still a waterfall.
yep, it all
Schedule.
looked that way, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
And like I said, I will have that on the agenda too to ask more, but I do see the jazz band thing here. They did mention that. And then the trying to reduce the number of study halls they mentioned, which is certainly something that I think we would benefit from, because, but I think we should let them speak more to it directly.
And Tara,
Good evening, everyone. You have my report. It outlines what's happening in the business office for reports during the month of March, in addition to being our busy budget month. Jamie and I have 2 districts that go to vote in May, but we had 4 that went in March. So that's always busy to get geared up and prepared for. And then the second part of my report, if there are any questions about my reports, the second part of my report is our projection through January 31st of where we're performing financially as the district. So the top section on the expenditure side are the items that have occurred that we didn't have in the fiscal year 25 budget. So I provided out the list there. That last one, the VT/VLC fees, that's offset by all of our collaborative diploma program revenue. So I showed it as an expense, but then you'll see on the next side that the revenue is offsetting that. And then 2 of the other items that are overspent, and as you recall, during the budget process for fiscal year 26, we increased the money that we had for the student assistance program counselor and the school-based clinician. So those are an increase that we had done based on spending that's happening now. And then on the areas of savings, salaries are what was budgeted versus the actual contracts that we issued for fiscal year 25. And then health insurance, I always wait until January to do the health insurance projection because our open enrollment period is January 1st. So that allows for employees that need to change their benefits. And then that gives me a better projection to be able to tell you what we're looking at there. And we have some potential savings of $166,000 on that. Supplies, we haven't spent all of them, so depending on what else is needed throughout the course of the year, we have potential $25,000 there. And then last year, the supervisory union had received a literacy grant and math materials grant. So we were able to purchase some of the consumables that the school uses. So we've been able to save some money on the book line in the fiscal year 25 budget. So right now, with the areas not budgeted, overspent, and savings, we're looking at potentially $228,000 surplus on the expenditure side. And then on the next page is your revenue side. So in the event that we receive all the revenue that I have physically sent out invoices to districts for, and remember, we don't receive the revenue unless we have proof of residency. And the collaborative diploma program, same thing like we do, we have our own forms that we want Wright River Valley Supervisory Union students to complete. Other supervisory unions and supervisory districts have the same requirements, so depending on when those come in, we could potentially have an $822,000 overage on tuition based on what we budgeted for due to the increase in enrollment that we received here at RUD this year, which we talked about also during the budgeting. Preschool tuition, we're not getting as many kids into our program here from outside districts. I think that's also part of, First Branch opened their own preschool last year, or for this year, so I think that's some of it. But preschool students can go anywhere to receive. It's a full open choice regardless if your building has one or not. And then interest income, because we've had the cash available in our bank account, we haven't had to draw down on the money that sits in our arbitrage for our tax anticipation note. So we've earned some good interest there. So we're about just shy of $52,000 to date over what we had budgeted for. I haven't received any miscellaneous revenue, and I hadn't received any rentals up until January. So those, I don't have anything projected for there. And we've gotten $362 in donations. And then property taxes, state ed fund, and the transportation, our state tech ed funding and the transportation, I expect to get what we budgeted, so no difference there. And then vocational transportation reimbursement. So this works, I submit semester 1 and semester 2, and it's based on ridership. So if we don't have as many vocational students riding the school bus to get to vocational, we don't get as much reimbursement. So far I've only received $36,000 on the vocational transportation reimbursement. And then driver's ed, I haven't received anything there, and I don't expect to because we're using a contracted service this year. So I don't project that we'll get any driver's ed reimbursement this year as a result of that. And I haven't seen anything with regard to adult learning, so I don't project anything in those 2 lines. So based on the increase in revenue, potential surplus and expenditures, we could be looking at $829,000 for a surplus at the close of this year. But again, I just want to err on that side of caution that the secondary tuition revenue is based on if we get all those residencies.
Thank you. Any questions for Tara?
Is the driver's ed more expensive or less expensive than what we budgeted for? Since we're hiring a private firm.
With salary and benefits, I want to say it was less
It'll be less.
expensive.
But we continue to try to search for our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we also have some kiddos, you know, that are now also going out and getting it from other private providers as well, so.
I was just curious.
Yep.
My oldest one is taking it.
Yeah? Oh, that's exciting.
My hair's gonna turn grayer.
And then if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Anything else? As always, Tara, you're amazing.
Thank you.
Now, what, it wasn't mentioned, there is a finance committee that I have been on.
Oh,
I'll
yes,
keep
sorry about
doing
that. Yes. We should put that on, I should have put that on next month. I'm sorry about that.
What?
Yep. Facilities, I
You
didn't.
just reminded me of the facilities too.
Oh, facilities isn't on here yet.
Yep, I'll get both those on.
Those are big ones. Okay. Policy committee updates.
Rodney's not here, so I can give a brief update. So we have currently right now, we're working on 8 policies in policy committee, of which 6 of those are revisions, but some are pretty significant revisions, so we'll do several readings on. And then we've got a couple new policies that will come forward. So some are in the fiscal realm, like capitalization of assets. We're revising that from 5,000 to 10,000 because the feds adjusted their rules. We have a stop payment policy around for the business office around when we would stop payment on checks, just so that's in policy and clearly articulated procedures that go with that. Our wellness policy has been revised by our SU-wide wellness committee, which is made up of teachers, food service, nurses, and we were supported by the Agency of Ed. That's one of the things that was identified that we needed to do to stay in compliance with Vermont statute. There's just some things that we needed to tweak from our current wellness policy to get an alignment specific around food service. And also coming forward soon will be some revisions to our student conduct policy. I think it's the other one we've been working on within policy that hasn't come out of committee yet. So just know, I think probably in May, there'll be several policies that will have come out of committee by then.
Okay, thank you. Should we go back to finance committee, even though we're not going to appoint somebody right now, but Peggy, do you have anything to say about finance committee?
Nope. Given that.
No, we didn't meet because of the reorg.
Okay. And
Building,
facilities?
we didn't meet because
Okay.
of the budget and bond vote.
Okay. So now we are at discussion items. Follow-up regarding the annual meeting and the fiscal year 26 budget vote and bond vote. Anybody have anything they wanted to say?
I could start one, is that okay? Just so the board knows. In regards to the bond vote, just a reminder that unless there was a reconsideration petition, there's nothing that the board can do in regards to rewarning a bond now until after November. Because it's a full calendar year. So if we were going to look into if it's the board's desire to continue to pursue some type of change to a bond, the facility committee could take that information back and go to work on it, but nothing would come forward until after next November because you can't warn more than 2 bonds within a calendar year.
Okay.
We do need to start talking though about doing the water thing that
Yep.
That definitely. We did spend a little money.
Yes, the wastewater runoff.
Yeah.
Yep, no, we're gonna have to jump on that. The good news is we've already gotten the drawings, so yes, I'm gonna need to jump off and go to RFP, you're absolutely right, around that project, so that we can get that taken care of.
And is that something that was going to be independent of all of the other building things?
Well, they would have bid it out independently, yes.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and bid that out ourselves now.
And we need to take care of entrances. But that gets sticky because we need to know what our plan is going forward for the rest before we have a plan for entrances.
Right, I agree. I'm glad that you said that. I was wondering the same thing about the water too. So are they able to plan that project such that it won't matter what the expansion footprint looks like?
I think we
Because-
should plan it if we were going to do expansion footprint and do that as the project, is what I'm
Yeah.
gonna suggest.
Now,
Because.
will it be affected by them, because they're gonna have to do another foundation if another expansion were to happen?
We were believe it or not, that whole remediation is occurring in the current high school parking lot.
Okay, all right,
It's
understood.
got nothing to do with actually that footprint, but that's what we gotta do to meet the state requirements. Because part of why we're doing this is there had not been appropriate permitting done when the new gymnasium construction occurred. So the state gave us a timeline that we're approaching quickly that says we gotta do this project. And we've already received the okay from the state around how we were gonna manage it. But that happens over on the parking lot side.
Okay, so it sounds like that could logically be mostly separated or at least looked at.
That one could be
separately.
totally separated
I
from
think
the
we're hearing, and
project.
I'm happy to see people here talking about it, so I'm glad that we're talking more about it, but, I kind of started getting involved and coming to these meetings, not because of the bond, but tertiarily because of the bond. And I absolutely echo Ed's comment that the safety concerns are very real for me. As a board member concerned about that part of the project. Effectively, that's now pushed at least another calendar year down the road before any improvements are made. And so I think that absolutely needs to be discussed.
There is a grassroots effort that I've become aware of to get enough signatures on a petition for a revote.
A revote on the bond. So how many more days?
It's
Time meeting
30
was on-
days from the day of the vote, which was what, March 4th? So,
About 2 weeks.
yeah, I have no idea if they're going to be successful. I think they have to have something like over 200 signatures
lot
on
of
the
signatures.
petition
Yeah.
in order to do that, and
And if they were to do that, that would be a re-vote on exactly.
exactly the same proposal. And if they were successful in the 30 days, then we would have 60 days in order to schedule with Carmen, and, yeah, I guess Carmen is the one that would be in charge of scheduling that, the vote. So,
I did also want to appreciate, how many people did come to the school meeting the day before town meeting. It was a great turnout from what I was expecting to what I saw. So.
Yeah, we were up. I wasn't at your annual meeting, but was it a little larger than it had been?
yeah, it was pretty good.
And it seemed like good participation too, which I appreciate. I think part of the issue surrounding this vote, the previous vote, and others like it, are really public participation, just because information can only get out in certain ways, and it's good to see people participating.
I have a question that probably you can answer, Jamie. Thinking back to what Ian was saying, that the board can only do this this bond vote again in November, but if it were separated out, the the way that Ian would like to see it done, that would be a new bond vote, right?
Right.
And so it could happen before November.
No, sorry. You can't put any bond vote, even if you
Okay.
adjust it, until after November.
Okay. Thank you for
Yes. No.
clarifying that. Ian?
Just in listening in and just to make sure I understand Jamie's words correctly, because at one point there, if there is a signed petition to do a different type of bond, is that, or maybe we can talk off channel to understand better. But
You can only do a-
there's a petition now, it has to be, what the bond was if we petition the vote of the bond. But I don't know, can we petition for a different bond vote or a different, I don't know.
No.
No, my understanding is that it has to be the exact same language, everything,
Yes, correct.
in order for it to be a revote.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and just so, and just to clarify, the board cannot take action on any other type of bond now until after November.
Right.
But it does seem that with only 20 vote difference, that it's the people that have spoken to me, they feel like it's worth the effort to try again in the 60 days or in the 30 days. And if they can't get the 200 signatures on their petitions, then their feeling is that there's probably just not enough support, period. So.
Now, if that were to happen, would the board want to hold more information nights and that sort of thing before whenever the next revote, if the petition were successful?
We'd have to warn it. You do take action as a board to rewarn it. And you would still have to, within 10 days, hold a public
Okay,
information.
it's required.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be required, that piece. And then certainly the board could talk about, do you do more than that? Which you have, in the other last two.
Having gone to those, I think they were successful for what they were, but again, the encouragement for people to come out and really get the information firsthand and to see the building and that sort of thing. The people that came were largely the ones who felt strongly about the project. I liked the idea of, they had the posters on the wall and put your sticky note on the one that's most important, or, because I think I've seen public comment about, I agree with parts of it, but not other parts of it, and that can be difficult. A lot of them were interdependent, but it was nice to at least give people a voice about which part was the most important. But I would want to, if this were to transpire, try to figure out how to get more public involvement, if possible.
And I think that's where the people I've spoken to are saying they feel like they need to be the ones taking responsibility for that. They feel like that there weren't enough people besides the boosters and the school board out there promoting it. People were kind of just lackadaisical about it or whatever, and they're waking up now and realizing, wow, I have 10 friends that didn't vote, and I have, 4 neighbors that didn't vote, that would have voted in favor, that kind of thing. And so I think that they're the ones that are gonna have to be beating the bushes and getting people out.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. We need a grassroots effort. If people truly want this to go through, we need a grassroots effort to support it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the notion that these things all needed to happen, that came from the schools and from public concern about these things, and that's,
Yeah.
It's not the folks who were sitting here a month ago and now me, I suppose, and Jamie, but you all didn't cook up the project and
No.
say, it would be fun.
Yeah.
So, if we do see the petition and there's enough interest in the revote, I would hope that those same folks can really encourage participation, even
Yeah.
from people who they know are publicly opposed to it.
Yeah.
I think those would be the more important people to not, we can't make anybody go to a meeting,
Yeah.
but if we can sort of explain how these things came to be and not just have it
Yeah.
lost in the
Yeah.
social media.
One of the comments that somebody made to me was, and this was kind of our thing, that the school report that came out so late this year. Some people received it the day before town meeting.
Yeah, I heard that. I
And,
heard that too.
and they felt like they didn't know enough about things that, you know, that was one of the reasons they wanted to see a revote because, and other people mentioned that it was school vacation and people were away. And again, you know, because they hadn't received it ahead of time, they just, yeah, lackadaisical, I guess is the word. They just didn't pay much attention. And now they're realizing, wow, we need to pay attention. So we'll see. See how it goes.
I feel like we can't wait for that, so what's the next step in figuring out how we're gonna proceed with that? You know, I just got this out to remind myself of what all we're talking about doing. I don't feel like we can wait to see if there's a petition, so what's the next step in figuring out if we're gonna do secure entrances, or is it goes to the facilities committee? Is that what happens next?
That's who's
or-
been doing it. I mean, you're gonna know whether there's a reconsideration petition by April,
Yeah, before our next meeting, I guess.
before your next
Yeah.
meeting.
Got it,
And I think
okay.
then at the next meeting,
Yeah.
the board will need to really dig into, I think, that proposal.
Okay.
What things do we wanna go to RFP for or not? I mean, between now and then, I will, just cause like Peggy said, the water isn't it,
Yeah.
I mean, we know by the state we need to do that. So I will go ahead and work on getting an RFP put together. So that in the April meeting, if you are all like, you know, the petition didn't happen, but as a board, you know, we should be going out to bids, that we're ready to launch that. And then at that time, you know, we can talk about, are there other parts of the project that you might want to possibly use your capital funds for
I was gonna say,
to fund?
yeah.
And then if
Okay.
you do, then we could go ahead and work on, you know, bid proposals for those aspects.
This may affect capital fund expenditure to get things done. Yeah.
And things might change, because if it's not, like if we did decide to do one and not the other, it also might be cheaper though, because you're not, which doesn't make sense if we eventually want to do all of them, so just because some depend on the other, it just gets a little bit more tricky.
Well, it's
Decide
good
what
to know
do
that the
next.
water doesn't depend upon.
That part doesn't,
And,
no.
and
that
and the
doesn't.
Bethel secure entrance would not depend
Right.
upon the
And
rest.
the
Yeah.
Bethel secure entrance
Yeah.
does not. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you really start to think about it, in my mind, it's that, not, but we could design it with, in mind. If you were like secure entrance at the high school is important too, and we wanted to go to bid for all three,
Right,
we could have it designed in a way that in case you wanted to add that entryway into an expansion, that could easily be done. Am I making sense?
Yeah,
Like,
sure, yeah.
we could
Yeah.
design it that way.
okay.
So to be clear, not that there's a huge audience, particularly right now, but that would mean that the public is not voting on those things independently. And I feel like the sentiment in town is that if this is voted down, or was voted down, if the petition doesn't happen, everybody's gonna get to vote on each thing individually.
Not if you use capital funds.
No, I understand. I'm just
Yeah.
being clear out loud that that's what the implication is there. Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on this item? Okay, legislative updates and discussion on education proposals.
Is there anything from
That's not depressing?
from Montpelier?
Well, I mean, I did share with you all,
Yeah.
which hasn't necessarily gotten a lot of publicity, was out of Senate Ed. It was just still really a proposal. They didn't create a bill, but that would create supervisory unions and supervisory districts. And if you look at the supervisory unions, we're one of them, but they tended to be, the supervisory unions were going to be put in place mostly around those districts that were not operating, meaning they didn't operate high schools, and had levels of choice. And if you look at the map, aligned around the traditional independent schools, which means that served as public schools for some of those towns originally, right? So Linden Institute and St. J, if you look, is up in that northeast Supervisory Union, and the White River Valley Supervisory Union, which they continued to call, which I thought was interesting, would be with Thetford. If you look, Thetford District was added to the White River Valley SU. That was intentional. I mean, that was around that traditional Thetford Independent School. And then if you look at that south west one, it would have encompassed Burton
Yeah.
Academy, which are the four historical independent schools. So that was to try to carve out this notion of how do you create choice. Like if you look at the governor's bill, that whole notion of how you're going to create choice within those 5 mega districts is actually quite complicated by law, right? And I would say from an equity standpoint, within how large those districts are, wherever they designate that one independent like choice school to be, like would result in some folks get to access that and others wouldn't. So he's got, I think, a real uphill battle around that actually from a legality standpoint, that because I think that will get challenged in court if it was to come into law. What I'm hearing right now out of House Ed, and remember they actually proposed a bill, is that they are seriously considering now whether they go back to the original plan the legislature had last year around trying to leverage the commission on the future of future of Vermont education, or however they titled it, to come back with a policy proposal next year to be considered in regards to governance. And that would, at this point, all they're talking about are actual supervisory districts, not supervisory unions. The other thing I can report out on is that is, of course, separate from ed financing, which that's handled in Senate Finance and specifically mostly around House Ways and Means. So that doesn't mean we couldn't come out with a bill that might change ed financing to go to a foundation formula. By all, what we have, and when you look at the foundation formula in regards to RSU, this current budget year that we're operating in, the projection would have been that as an SU, meaning all of our districts, we would receive 3% more revenue, which means that we are spending right around in that foundation formula model. I also think that goes to say, though, that bigger doesn't mean always better, and that there's this idea that that rural, smaller districts are what are spending more and wreaking havoc on the ed fund. Well, I have tried to join some other superintendents and supervisory unions to say, we really have not done a good job of us organizing our voice. At this point, most superintendents serve supervisory districts, not supervisory unions. And if you look at what's coming out of the VSBA and VSA, it tends to be more in alignment with those supervisory districts. And frankly, what was testified by the VSA would not have changed anything in regards to Chittenden County districts. But for us, we would have went from having, 8 elementary schools down to, we would have had to close down to 2 in order to meet those thresholds, right? So that impacts us a great deal. And when you look at their cost per pupil, there's, if I look at what we're spending in regards to keeping some of our smaller elementary schools open, if you look at that cost outside of choice, meaning what high school tuitions actually cost those districts, school choice is expensive. That's why First Branch is coming to you. There's not a huge cost driver there. Am I making sense? There's this assumption that these small rural schools are what is costing the ed fund. I can't find the data that aligns to that. And I think that's why we haven't seen the data, is because the data is actually not there. So
It's a scare tactic, I think.
So just know that with us joining the Rural Community School Commission, that is the voice they're bringing to this for us, is really around there's a lot of ideas that it's our small rural community schools that are creating this issue with the ed fund, but the data is not aligned to that's necessarily the case. But certainly around politically right now, that seems to be what Montpelier's talking about a lot. So I just think we have to keep advocating in regards to that. The only other thing I wanted to mention in actually three other quick things for you all, is universal meals. I don't think there's any appetite in the either the House or Senate to tackle that.
I have a question regarding some of that. Just before I left, I saw that Ed pulled some money for farm to table for meals for our state, where they're not going to be able to provide.
That specifically, that USDA piece, that has not impacted any of our programming.
Okay.
I'm looking at Tara, but that's been my understanding
Okay.
when we vetted that out.
Okay.
So that, I was going to mention that. That was one of the buckets I was going to mention. The other thing is, just so you know, in regards to title funding, those bills are forward funding. So we know we have our title funding for the rest of this year, and we know we have it through next year, even if they take action. So if you see this headline that says they've cut title funding, that is FY27 budgeting. It's not what we budgeted for FY26.
Good.
And I'll continue to share that with the boards, because I mean, not that any of it makes me sleep better, but that I felt better knowing that. And the other thing that I am, quite concerned about and watching closely, though, too, in regards to Fed, is just Medicaid funding, because that supports, a lot of our families and students, but it also supports some important programming that we provide our kids through our partnership with Claire Martin. Because Claire Martin's able to build down on Medicaid funds that then allows us to access services to us at a much more reduced rate, and those students benefit from them, but frankly, all of our students benefit from those types of programs.
So who is our champion at a state level? With all the things going on at our state level, are we vulnerable to not having somebody defending us properly with the things that are happening at the federal level? Because the state leadership is condensing and smushing and trying to cut and cut and cut, and it doesn't seem to me that in that environment someone would stand up and put their hand up and say whoa, whoa, whoa to the Fed more. It almost seems like they'll be like, oh yeah, like sure. Not that Governor Scott is as conservative normally as we're seeing now at the Fed level, but still there seems to be a trend, and it doesn't seem like anybody in Vermont is trending towards the, hey, wait a minute, you shouldn't be cutting funding.
Well, I think what you're seeing is, I do hear Montpelier in the last week or so responding to, and this is part of when the governor vetoed the budget, I do think there's some disagreement around how to use some of those funds in regards to, in the event that the feds pull some funding from the state, specifically Medicaid. And one of the things I think it behooves us to also pay really close attention to is that in Health and Human Services, there's major concerns in Montpelier around our major insurance provider, Blue Cross Blue Shield, that they're becoming pretty unstable in regards to their funding. And so I just, that's certainly, it's the statewide provider for all educators, but a majority of people in this state are insured through Blue Cross Blue Shield.
MVP's a little bit, but not a major player.
MVP's a little bit, but so do know that is also something that I know Montpelier is very concerned about in regards to how to navigate that.
So I'm going to backtrack a couple of times, hopefully not to derail, but as far as Medicaid funding, that could be a far more immediate impact than federal education, right? Because that is, like you said, a lot of those affect FY27, but Medicaid could be an immediate impact.
Yes, they make significant adjustments to that. The impact on our families and kids, but also
it's already impacted our families this year when they made families reapply for Medicaid to see if they qualified. So we've already been impacted by the Medicaid rules being brought back to the table after the COVID suspension.
Okay, and so is there sort of like a contingency plan, or is it if Medicaid funding, you know, some of those, Claire Martin, you know, that sort of service just kind of has to cease? Is that the thinking?
No. I mean, that's certainly not my thinking. And, you know, we meet with Claire Martin regularly. I mean, I think the state in general is looking to try to address this, not just us locally.
Okay.
What the state will do to help support those regional mental health agencies. But certainly at the SU level, no. I mean, those are the types of things where we would have to try to figure out where we were going to reconcile budgets to make that happen.
Okay, understood.
And
I
we
just
would
wanna make
come,
sure
we
that
would
was-
come to you with plans around how we would try to do that. But no, I mean, I see those as real necessities for how we're doing our business.
Okay. I assumed that would be what you would say. I just wanted to make sure, because like I said, that could be an immediate sort of action, and hopefully it's not, my opinion. A question I had from before, though, that I want to make sure I don't forget to ask is, you might not know the answer, but Vermont's really unique in many, many ways. We all know that. But I'm curious if there's sort of any evidence from other states, sort of the district versus union, you know, a lot of the sort of reorganization, if we've seen success with moving towards something like what this proposal is suggesting. The reason I'm asking that is because while I see the sort of the benefit to what we're doing right now, I'm curious what the other argument is, you know, and if there's evidence to support it, I just want to know about it, not saying it's...
And the most local evidence we have is Maine. Did some mass redistricting.
That's actually what I was curious about, but I just haven't had time to look at other
so
states.
Maine is a state that has, I've heard that it has not gone well. I have not had the chance myself to dig into that research enough to have a better sense of why it hasn't gone well.
Okay. Yeah, it would just be really...
Hearing
good
a
for my
narrative
impression.
that it hasn't gone well, but I can't speak directly to it because I haven't been able to research it enough to know.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the evidence suggests, you know, you make these shifts we've seen in Maine that the, you know, that it has this impact.
I mean, the research around, like, is fairly nuanced, right, in regards to what the optimum side is and where the economy of scale is in schools where you start to get too big and you actually spend more, right? I think what's even more difficult in our state is that a lot of that research is done in densely populated areas where we're like rural and spread out, right?
Well, like I said, if you go from the model, if you're in a more densely populated area, you could certainly have, you know, maybe only lost one elementary school for every 12, but here you're going from, what is that, 8 to 2, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's governance, right? And so, you know, I mean, I don't know, I mean, it's a public meeting, so I'm just gonna say it. Like, I drive from my house in Calais to the time I get on the interstate in I-89, I drive through 3 districts that all have superintendents and supervisory offices within a 20-minute drive. We're the second largest SU in the state, meaning geographically. And if you look at boards, we're second, only to North Country. So, you know, what I get a little frustrated about is that all we talk about, though, is that the governance should be districts, and now possibly looking like, could we actually do more work in supervisory unions? And why I say that is that, and why I think why you're not going to hear Montpelier talk about wanting to go to supervisory unions versus districts, because if you go to districts, then districts have the ability to close schools. Where in a supervisory union, our smaller districts, right, like they're gonna work hard to keep their local community school open. And they do it and by a means of like not necessarily spending more money. So do I think there could be some governance that could happen where you could possibly consolidate some supervisory districts into supervisory unions? Yes. How much money will you save? I don't know. But there probably could be some savings there in governance. But what we keep hearing is supervisory districts, which means one board, right, within that geographical area, and a much more likelihood, I would say, for that district then to possibly close schools because you're not connected with it.
The issue that I've heard the most anxiety about, and that I personally have the most anxiety about, is the impact on students eventually potentially having to be bused all over creation because the local schools have, their local school has closed. And the impact especially on special needs students, students with disabilities, and other vulnerable students, to have to spend 45 minutes or an hour on a bus and have a completely different cohort from what they've had previously. I know I worked in Chicago previously, which is obviously a totally different situation. But I know in Southern Illinois, they did a lot of this consolidating because of similar situations, because there's a lot of farming and so forth down there. And it was really harmful for the kids, because they spent so much time sitting on a bus, or waiting for a bus, or the bus was late, or the bus didn't show up. Plus, the kids who really needed immediate attention all the time, say a particular teacher who was their mentor, they got lost in the shuffle. And I haven't heard from legislators enough attention to that particular issue, which I think for most parents and community members is a huge issue, right?
Yeah.
And also all the teachers get collapsed. When you collapse 8 into 2, you're letting a lot of folks go and you're getting a bigger classroom, which also means less attention to vulnerable students, potentially, not always, but potentially. So it's, I know a lot of people with small kids in Bethel, and boy, are they anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good for me to hear, because I should put out another community letter just giving an update then. If you're hearing folks are
Oh,
feeling.
yeah, because they like
anxious.
how it
Yeah.
is now. They like that their child has been in kindergarten with the same kids, and then first grade, and then second grade, and third grade, and that they've formed really solid friendships with kids, and sleepover groups and all that kind of stuff that would be lost. The community part of it would be lost. Community of parents and children and teachers.
Yeah.
So in talking about advocating for all of it, so one of the meetings, maybe last month, maybe the month before, there was discussion about, I can't remember the right title, but like a Rural Community Schools Alliance. Did I nail it? Sweet. So, has there been any movement? I didn't hear much about it since then, but that I haven't been at every minute, so I didn't know if there was.
We joined.
Yeah.
I was there for that. I knew.
We joined. That
Sure.
group is, they've hired a lobbyist, and they're certainly writing letters and communicating out to members in regards to the work they're doing. I mean, they're supposed to be testifying next week, and what I would say is one of the things I've appreciated about that group is that it has tended to give much more voice to districts like yours that have possibly already merged. I mean, I think it's important. One of the things that I try to remind folks, like this SU has already gone through 2 SU merger, like 2 SUs coming together as one, and went from 10 districts into 6. Like, you've done a lot of this work. And voluntarily, like through Act 46, right? And so I think that they're doing a really good job of giving that voice that didn't have someone to give it to, which I've really appreciated. So if you want to get on their email groups, I mean, it's a lot of emails. Just let me know if any of you want to, and I'll just ask them to add you. Does the whole board want it?
Sure.
Sure.
I do.
I don't
Yeah,
mind.
sure.
Great.
I'm curious what we're doing.
Anything else on legislative updates and discussion of education proposals?
Eek.
And so, frankly, as a new person, I'm not sure if how much of my personal experience I would share as a board member or as a person, a taxpayer in the town. But just to add to what you were saying, some folks moved here because family is here. We chose this lifestyle, as it were, over other opportunities. I pay taxes. I don't make a lot of money, but I don't make no money. Losing my family, and part of that is, okay, our kids have already gone to school here now for, well, one of them for 4 years. And the other 2 are already in the school system. They already have those friends. I'm not saying we would, because we wouldn't, but many folks would probably see that and say, well, if there was a time to move, now's it. You know, we just lost that school structure, so.
Yeah.
And last, certainly not least, but last, I just wanted to put out there that I've been hearing a lot of talk that legislatively there's a very deep concern about where school choice is going. The people that have spoken to me are not interested in unrestrained school choice, nor are they interested in money going to private schools, or very much not interested in religious schools receiving all the choice money.
I also had several people reach out to me before town meeting, essentially saying exactly what you just said, and not just one, not just one, so.
Me too.
So,
Okay, moving along. Community Engagement Task Force Report, it's part of your packet.
Nancy was on the committee. And I did mention Suzette Ballard, who helped facilitate this work, was really excited to hear that we were in a place where we could start to really dive into this. And she wanted the group to know that she's more than willing, the board to know, that if there's times that you have questions or specific areas that you wanted her to talk about, that she's more than willing to join us virtually during meetings too, to be able to address those. And then the other thing I had a wondering about too, and the board could think about this, is there is a lot here, and whether or not there's ever a desire to take a couple members from the board to even dive into this some more, to then, like, we could even possibly pull a retreat together that's specific to this, but that we would have a couple members that possibly had like worked on this and like we organized like how to engage the entire board. And I don't know, these are just ideas I've been having of thinking about how to really do this good work. You know, not at 8:30 at night.
Yeah, I would really like us to take time with it because, yeah, there is a huge amount of information here, and it shouldn't just be 10 minutes here or 5 minutes there.
The other thought I had too is just take certain pages for each board meeting to, like, we're gonna take these topics for next month, that's what we're looking at. There's a lot, so it would take a while, but yeah, I definitely want to spend time looking at this, and there's a lot of good data in there.
Well, how about if we decide now how many pages that we would...
Yeah, that could be a good way to take a bite-sized piece.
Yeah,
each
just a little
time.
here and there.
Yeah, maybe up to page 6 for the next meeting.
Yeah.
sure.
It seems to me like that would be a good break because then it gets into dropout rates and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds good. And some of
I
those.
think that makes sense, because then you're also looking at, for the next meeting would be dropout and graduation rates. And then beyond that, you could logically
Yeah.
chunk it out that way.
Well, and some of the things that looks in this first section, which I only read part of before the meeting, really have resonance for what we were just talking about in terms of what students can expect and should expect from their school experience, like having a close relationship with at least one adult.
Yeah.
Hard to do when you're on a bus.
Yeah.
You can't hang out after school and chat with your mentor.
Yeah. Okay, so next meeting, we will be prepared to talk about those first 6 pages.
I think timeline-wise, yeah, that will work out well for you. that you have gone through it, and then it still gives you time to talk about, like, maybe after you've gone through it, your retreat is, what's next?
Yeah.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I like there'd be follow-up, yeah, we talk about it. but
Right, you
then
talk
what?
about it, you
Yeah.
could do that over
Next
essentially
steps.
the rest,
Yeah.
the next 4 meetings, and then
Yeah.
if you did 6 at a time, or, but then that would give an opportunity to launch into a retreat around, like, all right, now that you've engaged in this,
Yeah.
what might our work plan be
Yeah.
from it?
Okay, action, possible action, do we have any?
I don't think so tonight,
No.
other than what you did for elected.
Yeah. Public comment again, but we've lost our public.
Goodbye.
Okay. New hires and resignations.
None, tonight.
Okay.
We are starting the hiring season though, so my
Yeah.
sense is we'll start to have some new hires for you next month.
Okay.
I think I saw a job post was out for Shane's position.
Shane's position, there's a job post for, yes. And we have some strong candidates, is what I've been told, so that would be one I think that we could bring to you next month.
Great.
That's great. I know from experience as a parent and a spouse that position's really important to the school, so.
Yeah. Any other business? Future agenda items.
We've got the schedule down.
The building facility committee, finance committee,
Yeah.
FBUT designation, that's what I wrote down.
It probably wouldn't be untoward to say that we're close to maybe being able to get a update negotiation.
Yeah, we'll put executive session for negotiation.
Yeah.
Update, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I ask a question about that? I noticed a couple things that I've gotten in the mail already, like the negotiations update and so forth. Are those meant for us to just, for our knowledge? But
From the
not-
VSBA?
Yeah, for not,
Absolutely.
not any other action or expectation that we comment or anything like that. Okay, good, I was just wondering, because some of that stuff, I'm like, whoa, there's a lot. So- Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next meeting date, Tuesday, April 15th.
So that's school vacation week, so Sharon moved theirs to the 8th at 5.
Oh, okay. I
What's
had
that, that's the
thought
previous Tuesday?
Because the following Tuesday is the SU board meeting.
Yeah.
Any objection to moving it to April 8th?
I will not be in town, but I can probably, I'll be in Chicago, but I can probably come in via Zoom.
Okay.
No objection.
I'm fine.
I actually think it might work well, because some of these things are a bit timely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just mean like next steps, right, in regards to like the water
Yeah.
runoff, like we'll know whether there is a reconsideration
Yeah.
petition or not. So actually, in some ways, I think it works
So if
better.
there is a petition filed before the 4th or
We'll know.
before midnight on the 4th or however it is, we will know essentially immediately, the next day.
We'll
Yeah.
know immediately. Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Within the time for them to just check the votes, they're good,
Right.
Carmen and Pamela.
But it won't be 2 weeks or, I'm just saying because the 4th to the 8th is only.
Within a day.
Okay.
Yeah, sometime on the 5th, maybe the 6th, we'll know.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, hey.
Thank you.